What's your interest in self-management?
I believe that we as a doctors, when we see patients, we have to provide that confidence to take active role in their care. And I think if people living with MS just rely on the doctors and doctors' appointments, it can be very disappointing because we are not present on the weekly, monthly, and sometimes yearly basis. We are quite distant from a patient, and in particular in the current environment when people have difficulties getting appointments. So it gives an opportunity people to think about themselves, to get more resilience if things change, whether people with MS are experiencing relapses or they notice changes like progression of MS. They are equipped with the relevant tools to implement these tools into day-to-day living to help them to improve their outcomes. Understanding MS and that knowledge of what is MS and how to manage stress and how to eat well and be active and sleep better really nourishes everyone's brain living with a chronic condition such as MS. And I think these everyday things can make a real difference if you know how to self-help. As you know, lifestyle is not a cure. There isn't a cure in MS, although there are some adverts on media and forums that herbs can solve the issues and cure MS. This is so wrong. But people can feel stronger, can feel more withstanding the storms that comes into their lives when they feel like they can't control. They get that grip of control and improve their quality of life.
So you would say that for everyone with MS, they should look into lifestyle factors to improve their quality of life?
Absolutely. I think this is one thing in their lives that they could do, is to self-manage and pursue the path that really is going to nourish their bodies, their brains, their hearts, their spirits, and will improve as a consequence the well-being and the whole quality of life.
So we mentioned a couple of tools you created, so digital tools to help people self-manage. So I'd like you to tell us about those, but also if you know that there are comparable tools outside of the UK, because this is a sort of global audience. So what are the tools you've created? And are there alternatives?
Yeah, so I've been involved in co-creation and co-designing a few tools. So the patient-led tools that we have designed with HCI company, Healthcare Innovations, is an app, Connect Plus app, which allows people to look for relevant information about MS. And in particular, it's very important when you're just newly diagnosed. So we listed in the video content what to expect within 6 months, because that's the most vulnerable period of time when people are being told and left to wait for one investigation and another. They feel really lost in a limbo situation. So that little kit gives them information, and they can also tune in and listen to some podcasts via this app, self-refer to other subspecialties like occupational therapists, physiotherapists, psychology services, get some posters and infographics around the vaccination that was very important and relevant in pandemic. So it's a giving tool. And then there is another tool that we have co-created with PKB team. We call this MS Patients Know Best. It's a self-management platform where people can record their symptoms, track their symptoms, access the lab results, track their performance, link in their Fitbit devices, and communicate with the healthcare providers, whether it's a nurse or consultant or MS coordinator. It really shows how this tool can improve the patient's outcomes. When we look at the scores of the disability and function living people with MS, people who are PKB users, they have lower score that indicates that their function is much, much better in contrast to people who's got more disability. So I think it's important to emphasize that self-management can be digital management, and you can get a lot of help if you track your symptoms. And to answer your question about the other tools available, there are so many different apps. You just name it. A couple that cross my mind is My MS Companion, Symptom Tracker. I think it's called, can't remember, MS Track, something like that. There are so many different available apps to download to to record your day-to-day performance, and that usually helps to identify the triggers. You can be very innovative with these tools, but simple notes taking on your smartphone or journaling your symptoms is equivalent as the digital tools. It's just the enhancement of your awareness of what's going on in your body and in your life, and what are the potential correlation and synergy between your life and your body. And are there any areas that you could tackle to improve these experiences in your day-to-day life? Without paying attention, without bringing awareness of these symptoms or worsening of your symptoms, it's difficult to then come to the conclusion and find the solution if you don't know what is causing, why you feel the way you feel. And quite often people are very fatigued with MS and they come to the clinics, we have discussion, and we find that the insomnia is the potential trigger of the fatigue. People sometimes struggle to identify the issues of what are the potential causes of fatigue. But if they sit down and list all these symptoms and potentially what they've done the day before, how they slept at nighttime, they then start seeing the patterns, which is so important living with MS.
That's very good points. I think because we have so many different symptoms, we just think, oh, it's just MS. But that doesn't mean it's just a blanket. We have to just accept it, because actually it can, if it's a physical symptom, sometimes there are ways to deal with it. And it could be that your shoes were wrong, or it could be that you were having a stressful thing in your life, and so I think we're more sensitive to things maybe like that.
Stress could be a primary cause, like you have a bad day and and then your symptoms worsen, or maybe stress is secondary compound coming from how you feel. Like if you have a lot of pain, you feel distressed and you can't find your way how to sit down or lay down or rest. That's a secondary a component, that comes out of your being, or how you feel on that particular day. So exactly the same with insomnia. You may feel anxious and stressed, and that's why you're not sleeping, or maybe your symptoms are keeping you awake, such as spasticity, pain, and cramping. So I think working with your healthcare providers and team is important to find this sort of balance and investigate these, as I mentioned, patterns, that all these symptoms can be addressed and can be managed. There's nothing that we can't do. There are so many ways. I don't offer that only lifestyle is going to replace everything, but no, it's a multidisciplinary approach in managing MS symptoms and managing disease activity. So there are different pathways, and it depends which symptom, which problem is dominant. Sometimes when we have only 15 minutes conversation in our clinics because of the lack of time or something else that we need to discuss, so some other emergencies arrive and we sort of cover that, and then we only have like 15 minutes left. And I quite often say to my patients, okay, tell me top 3 symptoms that you would like to get some help, and I in a way, you have to be prepared for this type of consultation, because I'm almost like putting people, on the stage, on the spot, and saying, oh, can you now summarize and I guess that's another reason why preparation, journaling, being record of your symptoms, it almost like helps you to prepare for the clinical consultations, because when you come and the consultant is busy with all the other relevant, clinical situations, whether DMT failure, the side effects, the new changes on the MRI scan, so their main focus is to preserve the brain health. But then symptoms may be put aside for a period of time because there are some priorities in managing the healthcare for patients living with MS. So, but then, listing them and getting them scored in a way, giving a top 3 scoring system would really help clinicians to focus on that too, during these kind of challenging conversations that we all have in our clinics, and whether from the patient's perspective and from the physician perspective, we both work as partners and we both worry about your situation. But if we have a structured, segmented plan, it really gives us a lot of structured, robust, smart management strategies to improve the well-being and quality of life.
Then you can say these are my top 3 things, and you've written them, because otherwise you sometimes get distracted because you'll start on number 1 and actually that will remind you of something different, and before you know it, you've not covered number 3. But if you actually have a list when you go in and say, well, this was the top 3 things I wanted to talk about, they know then what your focus is.
It's difficult to solve all the problems, and I guess hence these digital tools that allows us to connect and communicate with people, out of the clinics. I think that's another way of keeping that dialogue and conversation going. Otherwise, it's challenging if you don't have that sort of access to people, because we wish we could see our patients every day, but there is no capacity to do that. So how can we then connect? How can we build that relationship? If you look at your life, when you are making relationship with friends and family, you keep buzzing, you keep checking on people, So exactly the same with the, with a healthcare provider and the relationship with the patients that we form. They are formal, official. Obviously, we're not getting into details into their personal lives, but, if it is disease related, we want to know every detail. And how can we sort of keep that conversation going? So a lot of things needs to be done out of the clinic door,
There was